And that energy, you let go. So when things happen, that program of intensity is quite literally not running because it's no longer within you. It has resolved. And you've cleared away the program. You put away something else. You put in something better, something that's serving you, whether it's I love you or I will take care of you, whatever the case may be for that part. And now when you experience things, you experience them in a much different way. You quite literally understand, oh, it's not that they're hurting me. I can take this as it was meant and I can use it for good. And it's such a beautiful thing to truly go through. And I used to think I was going to just get to this one point where then everything would be perfect. And it truly is an ongoing, that's why it's like, I think like an inner labyrinth, the deeper you go, the work isn't done. It's an evolution of yourself. Yeah. And it's such a beautiful thing to experience. And I encourage everybody to experience. And if you have questions or you find things about yourself that upset you, find people who you can learn from to help yourself. And that's the other component that I do. I work with clients one-on-one on that work because it was truly profound. When I was having difficulties, I was having anxiety, I was having a lot of eating issues overall. And as I started to do the work, things started to resolve completely. So now it's not that the work is done. It's that it's different work now for me. Right. And it's truly life altering and life expanding in the best ways.
Yeah. You know what I also had to accept a little bit? I felt really tired. Mm-hmm. And they say that after like workout. Yep. Right. And I felt so tired. And then I was a little mad at myself. I'm mad because I'm tired. And then I had to be like, okay, no, it's okay. We're doing, it's emotional hard work.
Yeah.
And there's so much to it of accepting, because I think when triggers happen, the first thing we do is kind of look at the person or that immediate first thing that caused it. So whether it be a spouse, a family member, but usually there's an event that, repeats itself, occurs, a word that repeats itself. And so we want to put it on that person. Mm-hmm. And to, I guess, be humble enough to say, maybe it's not them, to say, maybe the problem is, why am I getting triggered by it? What's causing it? Mm-hmm. And to start looking within and digging. That's hard. That's
very much
hard.
So.
That's
emotional
really
intelligence
hard.
That is incredibly high. Because there are some people that are wanting to point that finger, but that emotional intelligence, of which I think we're starting to experience culturally an evolution of people understanding to a certain degree. I get what's mine. I know what's yours. Understanding how to actually set boundaries, understanding that when somebody says something, how do they mean it, and analyzing it and understanding and separating it and going, okay, that's on you, this is on me, and this is how I know. Because, when we were younger, at least for me, I didn't really understand boundaries. I didn't really understand self-talk. These weren't things that they were talking about as I was growing up because nobody was talking about them. Now people are starting to talk about it. People are having conversations about it. And it's a beautiful thing. It really is.
I saw this video that I thought was really interesting. Are you familiar with like ChatGPT?
Yeah.
Right. So somebody had asked ChatGPT if, I think it was something in the works of like the end of humanity, or how could, and the ChatGPT responded like, the way you can win at humanity and become a better person is if you rewrite your code. And the person said, how do I rewrite my code? I said, well, within humans, it would be in your database, kind of like within your computer, which would be our subconscious, right? And it's hard to go into a code and rewrite something if you cannot see it. Usually we can see what's conscious, what's in front of us, what we can observe, right? And even as babies, we have to put things in some sort of categories. And subconscious really doesn't go into a category because we don't even notice that we're talking to ourselves. We're not even hearing that these voices are happening. It seems as a part of reality almost. And so it talked about how you can rewire yourself, re-download it if you access and it talked about meditating or finding those pieces. And it was really interesting to see it set as that code writing machine, because we are indeed our own computer. But I remember in grade school somewhere, we did like a computer class. I did like a coding class, really simple coding. It's not anything, but like you write commands. So if this, do this. When this happens, then now do this. If this event occurs, this is the way you react. If this happens, you blamed yourself, so now you continue to blame yourself. If somebody said this, that means that you are that person, right? And so we take on of these commands as rules that we have to then follow, because that's the only thing we know, and usually happens in our childhood, because that's how when we learn to be human, right? Yeah. But the relationship and interactions we're really observing, we're watching these comments happen, so then we know what to say next. And so in our young little mind, all of this coding really happens, and to be able to find that floppy disk where this one's once written somewhere, and then you're like, I can't even put this floppy disk in this new computer, like there's no way to access it. Finding the ways to realize, hey, this is somewhere in me. How do I dig a little bit? Where do I find it? How do I really let go? Because like I said, when I let go of that, I was like, whoa, like a snake shedding its skin. I'm a whole new snake now. I don't want to be a snake. But like a whole new version of you, a rebirth almost. Yeah. Right. And it's like, how many more am I going to have? I wish I would have done these sooner, but let's accept I'm doing my best. So this is where I started my journey, and that's okay. Yeah. But being able to get there, and then my always thing, like I always say, is, okay, how do I help my daughter write clean code, but also know where to find it and access it? Because things are going to happen that are going to be out of her control, out of my control, out of other things that I want her to know she's always safe in my home and within her space. So what can I do to make sure that her communication with herself is healthy?
Yeah, that's an amazing question. So when we're born, we are born with the ability to understand language, but we come in with an understanding of, as we're moving about our environment, we understand fabrics, we understand sounds, we understand textures, we understand colors. And then language gets added in a different way. So our nervous system quite literally is wired for textures and sounds and colors. Language is another component that does come in. Once we start to add meaning, we really don't know the difference between a spoon and a fork. When we start to add meaning to the words that we're talking, our brain will start to interpret language and what does it mean. And we can also understand the tonality of our speech. So this is why when children hear, they understand the difference between mommy being upset and mommy being happy. Children understand the difference in tonality because there's a different energy coming in. And that is a great thing to understand. Once we start talking to our children, it's important to understand and to also offer to them as much support and guidance as possible. And it is quite literally a lot of work to reframe and to talk to them in a way that's supportive for them, because they come in and they are working to understand everything from the time of conception to 7 or 8 years old, depending on the research. It says 6, 7, or 8 years old. They are in a completely different brain wave length, and they're quite literally in a hypnotic state all the time. Wow. So we're experiencing things, and as they experience things, our nervous system is wired to also delete, distort, and generalize. So it'll take information and it'll store it over here. You go over here, you go over here, you're associated here, you're associated here, you're associated here. So for example, when we're doing that, this is a lot of the times when you're in the middle of a fight or when something happens. Let's say I've been driving since I was 16 years old. So the first time somebody cut me off in traffic was like, oh my God, it startled me. Right. Now, at almost 38, I have a number of years of driving under my belt. So when somebody cuts me off, it's not just that one event at 38, they're cutting me off. It is all of those years that have happened before that this program is being responded. So this is why you go from 0 to 60 really quickly, because it's not just one event. It's all of these programs, because that's how we are wired. When you experience something, your nervous system goes, whoop, store it in this file, whoop, store it in that file. So that's why we experience things more intensely and more intensely. This is why people will go 0 to 60 in a fight, because it's not one fight. It's not that one moment. It is everything that the nervous system understands about fighting, and here it's coming at somebody in a disagreement. So that can be really challenging. And that's where that emotional intelligence of knowing how to respond. And also, the other thing is, when we think about willpower, we're thinking about 5% of our mind. We're 5% conscious, 95% is unconscious. We're not thinking about all of these other things that are going on as we're communicating. We are doing our best to stay in this moment. Our subconscious is offering us additional information, additional support to justify what we're talking about or what we're doing in that moment. So there's quite a bit going on. When it comes to children and wanting to raise them in that supportive environment, we also have to raise them with the understanding of when you hear this, when I say don't cross the road, you need to respond and not cross the road, and understanding that boundaries are okay and firm voices are okay when they're in the appropriate setting and not just willy-nilly all over the place. And because sometimes if parent or guardian is not in a great mood, then they might be unpredictable to that child. That child doesn't know how to respond. So when they're unpredictable, the child becomes increased sensitivity to, I need to people please, I need to do my best because I don't know who I'm going to get where they are for whatever response.